Hi everyone. In this series of lectures, we are going to learn the concepts of industrial engineering. I am Omkara Swarupini, lecturer in Mechanical Engineering, Jain Government Polytechnic. In this lecture, we are going to learn the concepts of statistical quality control. Already in the previous lectures, we have learned what is statistical quality control, what is the importance of statistical quality control, and how the variations are being considered in collecting the data and what are the types of data and how we are going to construct a frequency distribution graphs, and also we have learned the measures of central tendency. In this lecture we are going to learn about measures of dispersion, characteristics of normal distribution curve, the areas under normal distribution curve and their importance, standardizing the data. In the previous lecture we have learned about the characteristics of distribution. There are two characteristics which we generally consider are measures of central tendency and measures of variability or scatter. We have learned in detail about measures of central tendency. What are the things we are going to consider in central tendency, like mean, median, mode. And we have learned what is mean, what is median, and how they are going to be calculated and how they are going to be varied with respect to different types of data. We have also learned the relationship between the mean, median, and mode, and how it is going to be varied with respect to the deviations, and we have learned about the skewness, which is going to be varied with respect to the different types of data. We have learnt about symmetrical skewness and positively and negatively skewed graphs. In this lecture, we are going to learn about measures of variability or scatter. Out of these two, we have learned central tendencies so far. Now we are going to learn about measures of variability or scatter, or we generally call it as measures of dispersion. Why we need measures of dispersion in addition to measures of central tendency? As there are some demerits or disadvantages of central tendencies, let us discuss now. These central tendencies do not adequately describe the distribution. That's nothing but how exactly they are going to be affect the distribution, or how the observations are being scattered along the curve or the graph, and it doesn't tell nothing about how the measurements are arranged in relation to the center. That's nothing but with respect to the center, how the observations are being deviated, whether the deviation is more or less with respect to the center value is not being described by using this central tendency. So we need dispersion in addition to the measures of central tendency. Same thing, let us discuss with respect to one example. We are going to compare the following distribution. Distribution A is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Distribution B is 4, 4, 4, 4, 5, 5, 5, 5. Distribution C is 2, 2, 4, 4, 5, 5, 7, 7. So when we compare these three distributions and we calculate mean, median, mode, that's nothing but measures of central tendency, we can see that the mean of first distribution is 4.5, the mean of second distribution is 4.5, and the mean of third distribution is also 4.5. Median is 4.5, 4.5 and 4.5 for all the three distributions. Mode for first one is, as there is no observation which is repeated more than once, all numbers can be taken as mode in the first distribution, and in the second distribution 4 and 5, and in the third distribution each are repeated twice, so we can consider 2, 4, 5, 7 as the mode of distribution C, and even number of observations are 8 in all the cases. So when we observe this, all the three values are almost same, so we cannot say, as this mean is 4.5 for all the three distribution, so we cannot say this distribution is good, this distribution is good, or this distribution is good. So we are not able to distinguish between ABC with respect to mean and median, as mean and median are same but the observations are different. So measures of central tendency cannot give us a clear picture about the observations and how they are going to be deviated with respect to these central values. So where they exactly fail? Central tendencies fail to give the information about extent to which the data is scattered from the mean value. So it doesn't give any extent or degree to which the data is scattered. That's nothing but how the observations are being scattered from the mean value. That data is not being given by the central tendency. Hence, we need measures of dispersion. To calculate the measures of dispersion, we have four types of indicators like range, mean deviation, standard deviation, and variance. Let us see individually what exactly these are and how they are being calculated to know the dispersion. Characteristics of a good measure of dispersion. So, what are the characteristics we need for calculating the dispersion? We have to use all the values in the distribution, describe the average or typical deviation of the values, increase in value as the distribution of values become more heterogeneous. So, we are going to use all the values or observations in this distribution and how they are being deviated with respect to the average value. Let us see what is range. Range is nothing but the difference between the highest and the lowest score. It is easy to calculate, but it is highly unstable. Let us take an example for calculating the range of the data. Like here we have a observations like 110, 120, 130, 40, 150, 160, 170, 180 and 190. The highest score is 190 and the least score is 110. So range will be 190 minus 110. That's nothing but 80. So this is how the range is being calculated. Just as simple as nothing but highest value minus lowest value. So for the earlier distributions like which we have taken for calculating the central tendencies ABC distribution, let us calculate the range. So for distribution A, the highest value is 8 and the least value is 1. Therefore, the range is 8 minus 1, 7. But for distribution B, the highest value is 5 and the least value is 4. 5 minus 4 is 1. So, the range is 1. For distribution C, the highest value is 7 and the lowest value is 2. 7 minus 2 is 5. So, with central tendencies, we got all mean and median are same. But coming to range, we have got a wide variety of ranges for the three distributions like 7, 5, 1, etc. So, we are able to get the distinguished ranges so that we are able to know what is the range of that observations. Like what will be the least and the highest values. Let us see the characteristics of range. It is easy to calculate, good way to eyeball your data for abnormalities, only uses two values in the distribution, can be deceptive if there are extreme values. Tells us nothing about the variability of the values within distribution. So range gives us only the difference between the highest and lowest, but it doesn't give any variability of observation within the distribution. So it just gives the limits. So let us discuss now deviation. Deviation. To use all observations in a distribution, one possibility is to make use of a construct called as deviation. As we already seen that in range we are not able to use all the observations. We are only using the highest and lowest. So that we are not able to tell exactly the variation or how they are going to be deviated. So to use all observations, now we are going to deal with deviation. So deviation is nothing but the distance between the values of a distribution and the mean. So that is nothing but, it is nothing but the difference between the observed value and the average value. So average of all the observations is being calculated, and with respect to that average value, how each observation is going to be deviated, how each value is going to be differed with respect to the average value. Oh, the distance between that gives us the deviation. So deviation is calculated by xi minus x bar, where xi is the observation and x bar is the mean of all the observations. Let us see some example here. Summing deviations always produces 0. Sum of absolute deviations depends on sample size. So here are examples of observations like 2, 2, 4, 4, 5, 5, 7, 7. That's nothing but distribution C, which we have already used in our previous calculations. So for this distribution, we have taken the mean value and the mean value is 4.5. So 2 minus 4.5 is minus 2.5. 2 minus 4.5 minus 2.5, 2.5. 4 minus 4.5 minus 4.05. So 4 minus 4.5 minus 0.5, and 5 minus 4.5, 0.5, 0.5, 2.5, 2.5. This is how the deviation is being calculated. But when we are going to summing this deviation, it always produces 0 because the distribution is symmetrical and the values are being negative for some deviations, and some deviations the values are being positive. That's nothing but the values are distributed with respect to mean in the left side and also to the right side with respect to the center. So when we are going to take the absolute values, that's nothing but only the positive value or the only the magnitude of the deviation if we are going to consider without any sign, then we are going to get the total deviation is to be 12. The sum of deviation is to be 12. This is how the deviation is being calculated. Now let us see mean deviation. So mean deviation is nothing but a better method of expressing the dispersion, and mean deviation is the deviation of each figure from arithmetic mean taken, and all such deviations are added and then divided by the number of items in the group. That is nothing but we are going to add all the deviations with respect to the arithmetic mean divided by number of observations. So already we have calculated the deviation for each observation. Now we are going to take the sum of these deviations divided by number of observations. This gives us the arithmetic deviation or the mean deviation. So AD is nothing but mean deviation, N is nothing but number of observation, X bar is the average of all the observations, and Xi is the observation of ith value. Now let us see about variance. Variance. Mean deviation is calculated omitting the signs positive and negative. This is not mathematically correct. To remove this discrepancy, the differences are squared up, their sum is taken and average obtained. The average so obtained is known as variance. Variance is the sum of squares of deviations from the arithmetic mean divided by the number of observations. So, in the mean deviation, what we have done? We have taken the absolute values and we are going to be calculating the sum of deviations. So we are neglecting this negative signs. So when we are going to take the absolute deviations, we are neglecting the positive and negative signs and we are going to take the only positive values. So when we are going to neglect this positive and negative value, we are not able to say exactly the values how they are going to be dispersed. So for that reason we are now calculating variance. So variance is nothing but we are going to take the squares of the deviations and then we are going to divide it by the number of observations. So we are going to take xi minus x bar whole square and sum of these squares of deviations by number of observations. This gives us the variation and is represented by s square. So generally this variance is appropriate for interval ratio level variables, but the main limitation is square units are nearly impossible to interpret. Next is standard deviation. It is the root mean square deviation of the observed values about their mean. This is most reliable, widely used type of dispersion, represented with S when samples are taken and sigma when population is taken. So again we have a limitation with variance because we are not able to get exact value as they are being squared up. So for that reason now what we are going to take, again we are going to take the root mean square deviation. That's nothing but we are going to take the under root of squared deviation. So that gives us the standard deviation. So simply we can say it as square root of variance. So S is equal to square root of sigma of xi minus x bar whole square by n. So this is nothing but variance. So under root of variance is nothing but standard deviation. The standard deviation is the average distance that observations are from the mean. So this gives us the average distance. Each observation is going to be taken with respect to the center or the mean value. It is the average across all the observation and weights the extreme ones more heavily. An index of variability increases in value as the distribution becomes more variable, appropriate for interval ratio variables. But the main limitation is hard to compare across measures made in different units. So when we take populations, we are going to represent it with sigma. Sigma square is equal to sigma of xi minus x bar whole square by n, or sum of xi minus x bar whole square by n. Again, sigma is equal to under root of sum of xi minus x bar whole square by n. When we are going to take the sample, we are going to represent it with s. Only difference, the representation, s or sigma. So if samples are taken, we are representing it with s. If the population is taken, we are going to represent it with sigma. Let us take some example, previous example for distribution C. So already we have calculated the deviation xi minus x bar. Now for this xi minus x bar, instead of taking the absolute value, now we are going to take the squared value. That is nothing but di square. So minus 2.5 whole square. That's nothing but 6.25, 6.25. This is how we are going to get. The sum of this di square is nothing but 26. So s will become under root of 26 by number of observations are 8. So s value is 1.80. This is how we can calculate the standard deviation for the distribution C. Similarly, we can do it for the distribution A and B also. Let us now compare the distributions. So for distribution A, B, C, let us compare the standard deviation values. When calculated, we will get for distribution A, S is equal to 2.29. For distribution B, S is equal to 0.50, and distribution C, S is equal to 1.80. Even though the mean, median are same for these three distributions, the range is different, deviation is different, standard deviation is going to be different. So this is how we can compare the distribution with respect to central tendency and measures of dispersion. Let us have some assignment problems which you can practice at your home. Find mean and standard deviation from the following data. And one more example is the data of width is given and frequency is given. So based on that, we have to calculate the standard deviation, mean, and what's the variance. And we are going to know what percentage of pins manufactured has width of 9.52 to 9.63. So we have to calculate the percentage of pins manufactured which has a width of 9.52 to 9.63. These examples you can practice at your home. Now let us discuss one more distribution curve which is generally used in our probability. That's nothing but characteristics of normal distribution curve. Let us see what is normal distribution curve and how it is going to be used in our statistical quality control. So what is a normal curve? Normal curve is also called as probability curve, Gaussian curve or Laplacian curve. It observes normal law. This represents frequency distribution when the observations are large in number. Normal distribution is common in nature. Heights of people, marks obtained by students, intelligence of people are some of the examples of normal distribution. Histogram represents frequency distribution. Normal curve can be obtained from histogram if number of observations are more. If the number of observations are increased, then the number of cells will increase and the width of the cell will become smaller and smaller. Then the line joining the tops of the cells of histogram will then approach a smooth curve. The height of the curve at any point is proportional to the frequency at that point, and the area under it between any two limits is proportional to the frequency of occurrences within these limits. Such a curve is called frequency curve. The frequency curves may be of different shapes. The most important of these shapes is statistical quality control is the normal curve. Its shape is like that of a bell, symmetrical about y-axis, and it extends from minus infinity to plus infinity. So generally this normal curve is also called as probability curve or Gaussian curve or Laplacian curve. It is in the form of symmetrical bell-shaped curve. The shape of the curve depends on population, mean, and standard, standard deviation sigma. So it depends on mu and sigma. And the center of distribution is mu or it's generally the average x bar, and spread is determined by sigma. Most values fall around the mean, but some values are smaller and some are larger. Normal distribution curve is also called probability curve. This can be obtained from histogram if the number of observations are more. The area under each column of the histogram is proportional to the frequency within its cell. If the number of observations are increased, then the number of cells might be increased more and more, and width of the cell will become smaller and smaller. So the area under the rectangle is equal to probability. So let us take the example of histogram. So here on the x-axis, the width of the rectangle is more and the observations are only here are 4. Let us see one more example. We have decreased the interval size. That's nothing but we have gone the intervals of size of 10. Then the observations has been increased. Let us increase more. So even if we are able to decrease the interval size more of interval each of width of 5, then we are going to get more number of observations within the smaller limit, and the curve is going to take the shape of a smooth curve or a bell-shaped curve. So general examples for this: normal random variables or testosterone level of male students, head circumference of adult females, length of middle finger of 250 students, or marks obtained, heights, intelligence, etc. etc. Many ways we can use this normal random variables. This is how the normal distribution curve is going to be look like. It's a perfect symmetrical bell-shaped curve. The area under this curve is very useful in SQC to determine whether the manufacturing process is within control or not. It is necessary to have a knowledge to calculate the area under the curve lying between any two limits on baseline. The following important points should be noted. The normal distribution curve is symmetrical about its mean value and has bell shape. This curve is fully defined by x bar and sigma. Theoretically, the normal distribution curve extends from minus infinity to plus infinity. But for practical purposes, we can consider normal curve as extending only 3 sigma values to the left and 3 sigma values to the right of the mean, that is x bar plus or minus 3 sigma, or we simply say mu plus or minus 3 sigma. The average and standard deviation sigma are to be calculated first. Then it is simple to calculate area under the curve between any two specified limits on the baseline. The calculated area under the curve estimates the total percentage of production that will fail within engineering specification limits. The most commonly quoted limits in connection with the curve are as follows. So generally we are going to consider only three cases, that is mu plus or minus sigma level, mu plus or minus 2 sigma level, and mu plus or minus 3 sigma level. Within this range only we are going to calculate how the deviations are being there and how many values are being within this range. So this gives us the percentage of all possible observed values of x within the given interval. So for mu plus or minus sigma range, we are going to get 68.26 percentage. That's nothing but the area under this curve is up to 68 percentage. So remaining 30% is going to be the rejected area. For mu plus or minus 2 sigma range, the area that is going to be covered is 95.44%, and for mu plus or minus 3 sigma, 99.73%. So this is nothing but the percentage of total area under the curve within specified limits. So let us see what exactly it is. The curve is fully defined by the average x bar or mu and standard deviation sigma, and generally it varies from minus infinity to plus infinity, but we are going to take only up to 3 sigma in the left side and 3 sigma in the right side. The area under the curve lying between any two limits is useful in SQC to determine whether the manufacturing process is within control or not. So if it falls within that area, we can say that process is in control. If it falls out of that area, we can say it is rejected or out of control. So for plus or minus sigma level, so generally we said that 68% is the area that is going to be covered. So the one standard deviation, that's nothing but mu plus or minus sigma level, it is going to cover up to 68%. So this yellow region is nothing but the area under the curve, which represents the 68 percentage of the curve. And if the deviations fall outside this yellow region, then we say that they are out of specified limits. And whatever the deviations that are within this yellow region, then we say that they are within the control region or within the specified limits. And for plus or minus 2 sigma level, so mu plus or minus 2 sigma level, the area that is going to be covered is 95.46 percentage. So generally we say 95%, and remaining 5% of is nothing but rejectable area. So whatever the observations or deviations that fall under this yellow region, those are within the specified limits, and whatever the values which are out of this curve, then we are say, then those values are in the rejectable or which are not within the specified limits. So 95 percentage is the acceptable range for this curve, and remaining 5% is the rejectable range. And for the 3 sigma level, so mu plus or minus 3 sigma level, the area that is going to be covered is 99.7%. Only 0.03% is going to be the rejected percentage. So maximum, if we are able to follow a quality of 3 sigma level, that's nothing but, generally we talk about 6 sigma, that's nothing but within 3 sigma to the left and 3 sigma to the right. So 6 sigma levels, if you are going to follow, we are going to assure a quality of 99.7%, and there is a rejection only of 0.3%, very less. So following this high quality is nothing but you are going to maintain a good quality product, or the process is highly under the controlled process within the specified limits. So within plus or minus 3 sigma, the area that is covered is 99.7%. The values which are not under this yellow region are out of control. So same thing it is in the tabulated form. For x bar plus or minus 0.6745 sigma, the area covered is 50%. And for x bar plus or minus sigma, the area covered is 68.26. X bar plus 2 sigma, 95.46. X bar plus or minus 3 sigma, 99.73%. These are the general values which are going to be considered in the normal distribution curve. There are different values of sigma, but these are the mostly used distribution curves. So how we are going to interpret these areas? Let us take some explanation. So if 1000 products are manufactured, for plus or minus 3 sigma, 997.3 products will lie within the limits. That means these 997 products are being accepted and only 3 products are being rejected. Coming to plus or minus 2 sigma level, 956.4 products will lie within the limits, and only the remaining 40 products are going to be rejected. And for sigma plus or minus sigma level, 682 products are being within the limits, and remaining 300 change products are going to be rejected. How we are going to standardize this data? For every mu and for every sigma, there is a different bell curve. To normalize, we use standardized units or standard units. We can use the same curve for all problems. Take the value x and subtract its mean mu from it, and then divide by its standard deviation sigma. Call the resulting value as z. That is nothing but z is equal to x minus mu by sigma. This is the standard unit that is we are going to be calculated. So generally z is called as standard normal. Total area under the bell curve equals 1. So there is a standard table for these z values which use the different values for different sigma and mu values and the area covered under that normal curve. From this table, we are going to take the z values. To calculate the area under normal distribution curve between x1 and x2. So we have to calculate z1 and z2 values. So z1 will be x1 minus mu by sigma and z2 will be x2 minus mu by sigma. These values are calculated with the help of those z tables. Generally, these are the standard tables which are going to be given by all the statistical books. So we can get easily these z tables. So by taking the values from that table, we can calculate z1 and z2. And by calculating z1 and z2 and the difference between z1 and z2 gives us the area between these two values. So for the observation x1 and x2, the area covered will be the z1 minus z2. This is the example problem which you can do at your home and you can try at your home. Let us summarize today's class. In this class, we have learned about measures of dispersion like range, mean deviation, standard deviation, variance. Also, we have learnt about normal distribution curve and its characteristics. Thank you.